This year is being called the first red horse, red sheep calamity year, when China entered a stretch of non-stop disaster. Then at the end of June, the Politburo met again, this time on flood control. And right as July began, a dam collapsed in Guangxi, and a massive tornado tore through Hubei.
Typhoons and heavy rain, sure, that's natural, no argument, but the flood and the dam collapse, that's man-made.
So the floodgates already opened at 6.
Right.
And not until 9 did they evacuate. And to this day, officials still haven't released the real full picture of the damage.
Yes, China's weather this year really does feel abnormal, genuinely bizarre. Over the past month or two, quite a few places have seen these huge hailstorms roll through, even snow in June.
Chinese culture has always held that disasters are heaven's warning to humanity. The idea that human and cosmic orders are linked, so bad governance shows up directly in nature and the heavens.
In traditional Chinese culture, snow falling in June and hail are both seen as signs of heaven's punishment coming down.
Right.
Once heaven sends a warning and disasters keep piling up, a ruler's first move should be to reflect, not cover it up, not shift blame onto those below.
Hello everyone, welcome to PinnacleView. I'm Shishan. This year is being called the first red horse, red sheep calamity year, when China entered a stretch of non-stop disaster. At the end of April, the CCP Politburo held a meeting to lay out disaster prevention plans. Then in May and June, China saw a string of fires and explosions. Then at the end of June, the Politburo met again, this time on flood control. And right as July began, a dam collapsed in Guangxi and a massive tornado tore through Hubei. And to this day, the authorities still haven't given us the real specific picture of what actually happened, especially not for the dam collapse in Nanning, Guangxi, where accounts differ sharply from the official line. And what's leaking out from inside the government paints a very different picture from the official numbers. So what's really going on there on the ground? People want answers. And joining us today, we have senior media professional Ms. Guo, along with independent producer Li Jun. Let's start with a quick word about our sponsor. We're now the exclusive distributor for Puritang's Xuanbao Black Ginseng, a supplement that's long been prized in traditional wellness circles as a health food. And honestly, we've gotten a lot of feedback from customers lately. One friend of ours, a Chinese American living in the US, had a mother back in China whose health had taken a serious turn for the worse. He rushed back home to be by her side, and he brought along Puritang's Black Ginseng drink, the oral liquid version. So his mother started drinking 2 packets a day of this Puritang oral liquid, the Black Ginseng product, and as a result, her energy, her physical strength, and her overall day-to-day activity all improved noticeably. A few months later, she wasn't just getting out and about normally, she was going for walks with her family regularly. Everyone was thrilled to see her doing so well. And then there's another friend of ours who just had surgery for colon cancer. Afterward, her body was pretty weak, and she'd often get so cold she'd shiver. After she kept drinking Puritang's Black Ginseng liquid regularly, she told us her stomach, which used to always feel cold, had improved dramatically. Her appetite and her energy were both a lot better than before. Friends told her, "You don't look like you just recovered from a major illness, you've got great color." Now, feedback like that is common. When your body's vital energy is running on empty, a deep course of truly top-grade black ginseng changes your whole state of mind and energy completely.
That deep conditioning, the fermented black ginseng, that's especially good too. It's really good for the liver.
For the liver?
Helps restore liver detox, really good.
You've tried it yourself too?
Yes, I've tried it.
So you've tried it too, right? Now, if you're out there buying Puritang's Black Ginseng products at checkout, make sure you remember to enter PinnacleView's exclusive promo code. That's JYLT. It actually comes from the first letters of PinnacleView's name in Chinese pinyin. Enter that code and you'll get free shipping anywhere in the world. There's also a gift with qualifying purchase, and spend $500 and you'll get a free raw black ginseng root. Spend $3,000 and we'll throw in an extra special grade raw root. This is a really rare deal, so if you've been thinking about it, we hope you'll seize the opportunity. Thank you all. Li Jun, let's turn to this flooding in Guangxi. We all know it's drawn a lot of attention. A lot of information from the public says the damage is severe, but officials seem to be downplaying it a bit, wouldn't you say? So what's the situation really like right now? Give us a rundown.
Okay, so this time in Hangzhou near Nanning, Guangxi, heavy rainfall meant that in a single day the total hit 637 millimeters.
637 millimeters, did I hear that right?
That's the equivalent of half a year's rain falling in a single day, and it triggered a flash flood. At the Liulan Reservoir in Hengzhou at 2:30 in the morning on July 6th, the water level had already exceeded the reservoir's designed flood control level by 0.91 meters. It kept rising, spilled over, and the dam wall cracked open in 2 separate places. The total length of the breach was about 50 meters. Basically, this muddy water surged across and came roaring downstream, right? In an instant, it swallowed up villages downstream. Now, local officials first said there were no casualties at all, nobody hurt, nobody killed. Then they changed their story and said 2 people had died. By July 7th, Xinhua published an instruction from Xi Jinping himself, saying the dam collapse and landslides had caused major casualties and heavy economic losses across the region. So once Xi Jinping said that, local officials suddenly followed suit. Yes, people had died. 4 dead, 8 missing. This is just officials following the political winds. No one at the top says anything. No one below says anything either. But word from ordinary people is far grimmer than the official version. Take July 7th, for example. In an online chat group for friends and family, people were sharing messages. One post said that in Nankang village, a lot of bodies were washing down from upstream, mostly children and elderly people. Another said that in what sounded like Yapo, Team 4, a lot of children and elderly were swept away too. That's just what they were saying to each other. Some said the flood came pouring down and people downstream had no chance. The whole village was swept away in an instant, and the water was full of heads bobbing up and down. And then someone said, wow, how many people are going to die? Some villagers were stranded on their rooftops, at risk of being swallowed by the floodwaters at any moment. Another video showed a village where the houses were almost completely submerged, only the rooftops still showing. In the raging floodwaters, more than 10 heads, more than 10 people were bobbing up and down on the surface. And inside a floating sedan, you could see 2 people still moving. That footage is absolutely horrifying. Honestly, I don't think those people had much chance of surviving. And another video showed the water just covered with heads bobbing up and down.
Yeah, that's really true.
It's pretty scary. Mainland netizens actually joked about it. One poster's username translates to something like, I'm your startup. A pretty funny name. He posted that both the Guangxi Vocational and Technical College of Logistics and Guigang Senior High School had flooded, with teachers and students among thousands of people trapped there waiting for rescue, and the water had already risen above the first floor. On top of that, there's something even worse. Guangxi is basically China's snake farming capital. In this one province alone, estimates on how many snakes are being bred vary wildly. Some say more than 2 million, others say 20 million. Let's just say it's in the millions. And what are most of them bred for? They're bred for making anti-venom, species like the 100-pace viper and the cobra, all highly venomous. And this flood in Guangxi submerged a lot of those snake farms, so plenty of snakes got loose. You can actually see it online, cobras swimming through the floodwater. Almost beautiful to watch, and others poking their heads up out of the water, which honestly looks pretty terrifying. Now here's another point of concern, the timing of the flood release notice. According to the official timeline, the reservoir opened its floodgates fully at 6 a.m., but residents say they didn't get the evacuation notice until around 8 a.m., a gap of roughly 2 hours. You release the water at 6, and I don't find out until 8, and then the dam collapses at 9, so a lot of residents genuinely didn't have time to get out. So on social media, netizens were commenting, with flooding this bad, who believes the official story? The media stayed silent because it doesn't fit the party's preferred narrative. So the public is left to fend for itself. Imagine the desperation. Heaven's furious, people resentful, but no one dares push back, so nature takes the lead.
Honestly, this kind of thing, officials covering it up, not reporting it, that's common. It's happened before. So with this Guangxi flood, is it a natural disaster or is it man-made? Because the rain fell in a single day over 600 millimeters. Beijing gets maybe 600 to 700 millimeters in a whole year. Here it all came down in one day. So this should be a natural disaster. Why is everyone so upset?
Typhoons and heavy rain, sure, that's natural, no argument. But the flood and the dam collapse, that's man-made. This reservoir, the Liulan Reservoir, broke ground in 1958, completed in 1960, a full 66 years old, a genuinely worn-out earthen dam. Back in July 2023, Hengzhou had already approved a project to remove hazards and reinforce this reservoir. Officials themselves admitted the facility was badly aged. There was serious water seepage and parts of it had even collapsed before. It had already been officially classified as a problem reservoir in need of urgent repair. By June last year, officials loudly announced the renovation was finished. They even built a smart monitoring centre claiming they'd upgraded to intelligent management. Just like that, a problem reservoir became a model project. So it was only last June that they declared all safety hazards eliminated using all this high-tech monitoring, no less, and yet barely a year later, in July this year, this so-called model project collapsed entirely, which tells you the hundreds of millions of yuan in reinforcement funding probably never actually made it into the concrete and rebar. What's even worse is that this reservoir's original design actually included a dedicated flood discharge channel, a spillway set aside specifically for extreme situations like this one. Even if part of it got washed out, it was never supposed to endanger the whole main dam's safety. But over time, this flood discharge channel got encroached on. Its flood control function became purely nominal, existing only on paper. Farmland was converted into high-rises, and people ended up living right on top of the spillway. So when the flood finally came, everything was finished. There's another detail I find especially ironic. A netizen revealed that a year earlier, someone had already posted online with a photo showing the Liulan Reservoir's dam already had a visible crack. And the location was clearly marked too. Comparing that photo to the site of the actual collapse now, it turns out the breach happened exactly where that crack was a year earlier. Another netizen said that a few months ago he worked security at the reservoir and saw several visible cracks on the dam himself. Those warning signs sat there for a year and nobody dealt with them. So where did that 380 million yuan in reinforcement funding actually go? That's the question Chinese netizens keep asking online. How much of it actually ended up in the concrete, in the rebar, and how much didn't? Did the rest just turn into somebody's Mutai liquor, school district housing, or even overseas assets? Now look at how officials responded. On the very day the Liulan Reservoir disaster was at its worst, CCTV actually rushed out a video debunking rumours, claiming that reports circulating online about a dam collapse in Guigang were nothing but fake news. So sharp-eared netizens picked up on it right away. That debunking video's voiceover was actually AI generated. They couldn't even be bothered to find a real anchor to fake some sincerity. So people were furious about this, absolutely livid. They said, you spend every day debunking rumours about Guigang, but the real disaster, the Liulan Reservoir collapse in Hangzhou, where things were worst, why won't you say a word about that? 300,000 people were affected and you try to fool us with an AI voiceover? The conclusion here is clear. Sure, the rainstorm triggered this, that part's natural, but the reservoir went years without real maintenance, the reinforcement project was for show, the warning system was too slow, the emergency channel had been built over, officials prioritised controlling information over an effective rescue. It's the whole system failing. That's the real root of this man-made disaster. We've seen this same pattern play out in mainland China way too many times. Every single time it's just natural disaster and all responsibility gets quietly waved away.
Right. So what everyone's focused on is that they released the water, the flood discharge, without any advance warning. It really looks like a panicked last-minute reaction where they simply couldn't think about anything else. Isn't that right?
From the photos out of the scene, this dam failed because of overtopping. Water poured over the top and blew out several huge breaches. Overtopping like that is a serious accident, a very serious one. Because water pouring over the crest hits with tremendous force, it scours out the base of the dam. Engineers call it a scour effect, and that undermines the foundation itself. It's incredibly dangerous. Normally, when water levels get high, you open the floodgates and release water. Why wasn't that done ahead of time? The typhoon and the rainfall forecast were both predictable, so why didn't they release water sooner?
Right. That's what everyone's asking. Normally, if you know heavy rain is coming, you'd empty the reservoir out ahead of time, make room to hold the water that's coming in, right? That scenario.
Right. Like I just mentioned, words come out that this reservoir had already been contracted out for fish farming. Once it's under contract like that, the water itself becomes the contractor's wealth. Both fish farming and hydropower need it to stay in place. The contractor doesn't want to release water until the very last moment. If officials underestimate the storm, no order goes out, and by then it's too late. So this isn't just a miscalculation, a technical slip-up. It's a systemic conflict of interest that jammed up the decision-making. If a reservoir were purely a public flood control facility, the water authority's only concern would be safety, right? Release water when you need to, empty the reservoir ahead of time when you need to. But the problem is, once a reservoir gets contracted out for fish farming and power generation, the water level itself becomes the contractor's asset. So the higher the water level, the fuller the fish ponds, the more water for power generation, the better the output. For the contractor, that's real money in the bank. Asking the contractor to release water and empty out the reservoir's capacity before the storm has even truly hit is basically asking them to dump out a harvest they've already got in hand. So under those conditions, of course, the contractor stalls as long as possible, hoping the rain won't turn out as bad as forecast.
Right, everyone's gambling on it.
Gambling on it, yes. We've actually seen this play out in reservoir management all across China many times over. This isn't the first case. Once a reservoir gets subcontracted out, and not just one layer, but layer after layer of subcontracting for profit, its public flood control purpose gets diluted. What you end up with is this warped hybrid. I need to control floods, but I also need to make money. And every time the real test comes, making money ends up taking priority over flood safety. Look at the concrete cost of this delay. Villagers downstream said they got the flood release warning notice the night before last. They woke up the next morning to find water already flooding the first floor, furniture and appliances ruined, and at its highest, the water had reached the second floor. It wasn't until around 9 in the morning that the village committee finally called everyone to evacuate to higher ground.
But the floodgates opened at 6 o'clock.
Right.
And not until 9 did they evacuate.
They lost water, power and communications all at once, completely cut off. So outsiders had no way to know the actual casualties downstream. One villager described being away from home watching his family's phone show as switched off the whole time. He couldn't get through, all he could do was wait helplessly for news. That information vacuum is exactly what gives officials room to say they haven't yet received casualty reports, a claim that's conveniently hard to verify. It's not that there are no casualties, they're just unverifiable.
Right. How many actually died, and whether you've seen a body, two different things.
Right. So on the surface, the Liulan Reservoir tragedy looks like a technical failure, releasing water too late. But dig deeper, and after the reservoir got commercially contracted out, its most basic public function, flood safety, got hollowed out by economic interests working hand in hand with a bureaucratic culture of covering things up. Typhoons come every year, and so does heavy rain. If this incentive system doesn't change, similar dam collapse tragedies will keep playing out elsewhere in China next year, the year after.
Right, so here's how it's supposed to work. When the reservoir's low on water, it releases water for everyone to use. And when there's plenty of water, it holds it back so nobody floods. That's how it's supposed to work. Now it's backwards, right? It's flipped. When there's little water, they rush to fill up the reservoir. Then when there's too much, they have to release it, or it's too dangerous for them. China now has more reservoirs than any country on Earth. Official figures put the total at around 95,000 dams and reservoirs nationwide, but that huge number masks serious gaps in quality and management. Historical records show that since 1954, dam failures have piled up.
3,500 of them, an average of 50 a year. So once a major flood actually hits, these dams end up becoming a factor that raises the risk of disaster, don't they?
Right, exactly. How do you even fight floods? Chinese people have been at this since ancient times. Legend has it the earliest flood control effort was Yu the Great, taming the waters. This civilization's relationship with water built up gradually over time. That's how it feels to us. And of course, it's tied to the weather too. Recently, something bizarre happened in Hubei. I saw it and it scared me. Apparently, a guy living on the 12th floor, he opened his window and just got sucked right out. That tornado must have been incredibly powerful, is that right?
Yes. On the night of July the 6th, eastern Hubei, including Huangxi, Huanggang, Ezhou, and Xianing, was hit by a rare, severe outbreak of extreme convective weather sweeping across the region. Roughly between 7 p.m. and 11 p.m. that night, 53 townships were slammed by thunderstorm-driven gale-force winds. So just how strong were those winds, generally speaking? Force 8 to Force 13 on the wind scale. Force 13 is terrifying. Some townships reached Force 13 with instantaneous gusts topping 40 meters per second, and multiple locations confirmed that tornadoes had touched down. In Huanggang, specifically that Huangzhou district you just mentioned, this is exactly what happened. Powerful winds literally gutted out an entire family's living room, tearing it wide open. Right, a family member was sucked right out of a 12th floor window. And in Ezhou, a heavy-duty truck got hurled more than 30 meters by the wind. Homes suffered massive damage. In just a few short hours, this left multiple townships in complete chaos. By around 11 p.m. on the 6th, Hubei's Emergency Management Office put out a notice saying 8 people had died and 1 was missing. Later, they said the casualties might total around 11. And by the latest count, more than 300 people have now been hospitalized with injuries. Roughly 14,600 people in total were affected by the disaster, and more than 4,800 homes either collapsed outright or were damaged.
Hubei is a genuinely strange place in China, honestly, a bit of an odd one. So Ms. Guo, I know you have deep personal ties to Hubei. Where you're from, are tornadoes usually a common thing, you think?
Yes, this time Huanggang actually had a real tornado, historically speaking. The peak wind speed exceeded level 15 on the wind scale. Both its destructive power and the length of the path it tore through are extremely rare anywhere on the Chinese mainland. Experts describe it like wringing out a towel. The spinning intensifies until it forms a tornado. I saw one myself as a kid. It happened during a school sports meet, not my own elementary school, but one nearby that was holding its sports day. A tornado came down and within minutes thousands of people died. That was 50 years ago now. At the time, it was nearly the biggest tornado in recorded history.
I want to point out, Huanggang is north of the Yangtze, cross the river, and you're in Ezhou, right? What kind of place is Huanggang? It's the place where Su Dongpo wrote Ode to the Red Cliffs. He was exiled, banished to this place, and while he was there, he wrote that famous piece, "The great river flows east, its waves washing away." That's about this very place. So it seems a tornado can send people flying up into the sky.
In an instant gone. This is footage from Ezhou, a woman swept up into midair by the tornado. Casualties like that are considered minor. But that's probably being covered up too. There's another really striking piece of footage. Huanggang has a famous spot called Yi'ai Lake, and a waterspout formed right on the lake's surface. A thick column of wind stretched straight up from the water, sucking branches and debris right into the swirling, spinning funnel. Footage like that is extremely rare to capture anywhere on the Chinese mainland. Nearby, there's a big mountain called Longwang Mountain. A lot of large vehicles, trucks, got spun by the fierce wind and thrown more than 30 metres away. A mall's front doors were blown off and an entire library roof got blown off and collapsed. None of this is exaggeration. You can see it right there in the official photos. And at the very same time, look at what else happened. The dam collapsed in Hangzhou, Guangxi, and a landslide in Gansu. 33 people were buried, and then Hubei got hit with this rare tornado. Within a day or two, several Chinese provinces seemed to erupt with major natural disasters all at once. This year's been packed with disasters, natural and man-made alike. This tornado isn't quite like the dam collapse. That was clearly human negligence. But set it alongside this whole string of disasters this year, and it's a reminder. Extreme weather in China is clearly growing more frequent and more intense.
Right, that's exactly how it feels. And actually, we know China's had a lot more than just this tornado, plenty of other things that haven't caused huge damage, but are still genuinely bizarre. Things like hail falling and places that even got snow in June. Li Jun, you were telling me about that.
Yes, China's weather this year really does feel abnormal, genuinely bizarre. Over the past month or two, quite a few places have seen these huge hailstorms roll through. There were even cases of snow falling in June. For example, in the early morning of June 1st, snow suddenly fell in northern Genhe, Inner Mongolia, in Jinhe, Mangui, and Longshan. Snow accumulation eventually reached 35 centimeters. The land instantly flipped right back into winter. On that same day, the greater Khingan Mountain area of Heilongjiang also saw snowfall. Then, right after that, on June 4th, Beijing and many parts of Hubei got hit by severe convective weather. 8 districts in Beijing, Fangshan, Daxing, Tongzhou, Changping, and others issued yellow hail alerts. That same afternoon, fierce winds came with dense hail pounding down, hailstones roughly 1 to 2 centimeters across, with some areas seeing stones close to the size of pigeon eggs. Then from July 3rd to July 4th, Beijing again saw this fire and ice extreme. Daytime highs topped 35 degrees Celsius, but by the evening into the early night it was hailing, with stones up to about 3 centimeters across. In traditional Chinese culture, snow falling in June and hail are both seen as signs of heaven's punishment coming down.
Right, the Chinese talk about heaven and humanity as one, don't they? Meaning if something's going on among the people, the heavens will react to it too. But I know it's not just natural disasters in China. There have been a lot of accidents lately too. I saw the latest news that there was a huge explosion in Xingtai, Hebei. Sounds pretty serious, right?
Lately, it's not just natural disasters piling up. Man-made accidents have been coming one after another too. Like you just said, on the afternoon of July 6th, a huge explosion hit the Wanfang Science and Technology Park in Ningjin County, Xingtai, Hebei. One factory building was leveled, and what rose up over the site was a mushroom cloud. The moment I saw that mushroom cloud, it terrified me. It looked like some kind of bomb or explosives of some serious nature. And in a lot of places, things were just torn to shreds. News of it got censored fast. The exact casualty numbers still haven't been publicly reported. Word on the street says the casualties were severe, but there's no coverage of it now. The day before that, at 11 o'clock in the morning on July 5th, up in Inner Mongolia, in East Ujimchin Banner, out in the eastern part of Shilingol League, a serious accident happened on National Highway 331, which runs through there. A hazmat tanker truck hauling ammonium nitrate slammed into another cargo truck, and then, and exploded.
This is the footage we just showed you. Ammonium nitrate is an extremely dangerous chemical. It's commonly used in fertilizer, in agricultural chemicals, but as many people don't realize, it can also be used to manufacture other things like explosives. But that same chemical can also be turned into explosives. And you know, when you're transporting stuff like this, even a bit of extra vibration is terrifying enough, let alone actually getting hit in a collision. This is extremely, extremely serious. You can see the ground basically burned and melted.
It's a stretch in the middle of the highway, basically blown open. From a distance, you could see it in the footage. Bang, another mushroom cloud went up. So the entire road surface was severely damaged. The accident killed at least 2 people and injured 4, including 7 whose thighs were severely mangled, and some who had their eyes cut by broken glass. Actually, a lot of the accidents back in May were pretty shocking too. Take May 4th, for instance, Luoyang, Hunan, right? A fireworks factory exploded. A massive explosion tore through, an especially major one. The building was almost leveled flat, nearby villagers' doors and windows shattered, and some residents evacuated in the middle of the night. The accident ultimately killed 37 people, injured 61, and left 1 person still missing. The State Council even set up a special investigation team to look into it thoroughly. Even worse was what happened on May 22nd in Shanxi at the Tongzhou Group's Liushenyu coal mine. A gas explosion tore through the mine. That blast killed 82, left 2 missing, and injured 128. It's one of the deadliest coal mine accidents in China recently. Afterward, it came out that the actual number of miners underground far exceeded the published figure. Many weren't wearing their location tracking cards, which seriously hampered the rescue effort and exposed major violations of the law. Anyway, these past 2 months have really seen no shortage of major disasters, plenty of natural ones, plenty of man-made ones, all piling up together. It makes you think back to that old saying about heaven and humanity being one. This year, whatever you want to call it, you really do need to be careful, honestly.
Right, over these past few years, Chinese society has run into problems on every front: corruption, moral decline, a total collapse of social trust. And now layered on top of all that is this non-stop string of disasters, both natural and man-made. The reservoirs we just talked about, that dam that got turned into somebody's private fish farm, and plenty more besides. Has the government ever once stepped up and formally faced any of this? Has it actually gone in and fixed the structural problems sitting underneath it all? I don't see it happening. This is all really one disease, the same problem everywhere. The system's gone rigid, no flexibility left. It can't correct itself anymore. I think this whole culture, this culture of faking things, lying, covering things up, this culture has actually seeped all the way into the bones of the entire system. It's not on the surface anymore, it's structural. There's an old Chinese saying, possessed by evil spirits. Something's gone badly wrong in ancient China when disaster struck, a flood, a tornado, whatever. So what would the emperor do? Issue an edict of self-blame, right? Or go somewhere to confess to heaven. At the least, he'd eat vegetarian for a couple of days. That was the bare minimum expected of him. Now the party does the exact opposite. It's all fight heaven, fight earth, fight people. That old Maoist mindset. So really, how a regime responds to disaster shows you its true nature, doesn't it?
That's right. Chinese culture has always held disasters are heaven's warning to humanity, the idea that the human and cosmic orders are linked. Bad governance shows up in nature, reminding rulers to reflect. It's actually similar to when a person's body gets sick. This is a Chinese medicine concept. When the body falls ill, you're generally supposed to reflect on why.
True.
That was the ancients' thinking. But the party's mindset is different. Deep down, it doesn't believe any power stands above it. So instead of reflecting, it doubles down, spinning the narrative and covering up the truth. Throughout history, whenever a major disaster hit, drought, flood, earthquake, locusts, the emperor's first instinct wasn't to blame some official. He'd ask himself, had his rule lost virtue? Had he angered heaven? Take the famous example, late in his reign, Emperor Wu of Han issued the Luntai Edict of Self-Blame.
Right, plenty of emperors issued edicts of self-blame. The party's top leaders, I haven't seen a single one.
Xi Jinping's whole logic of rule runs completely counter to that Chinese spirit of revering heaven and reflecting on oneself. From the moment the party took power, it was atheist and materialist. It never believed heaven and humanity were connected. It believed man could conquer heaven, could defeat nature outright. Taken to its extreme, that's the Cultural Revolution mindset. Fight heaven, fight earth, fight people, finding endless joy in it. So we're seeing Xi move backward these past few years, reviving class struggle rhetoric, stirring up ideological fights again. In a way, that's retracing the road back to the Cultural Revolution. So the other day, Trump said something on the 4th of July that I thought was great. He called communism a cancer, something that needs to be cut out.
And cut it out fast.
Cut it out fast. That line fits today's China perfectly.
Speaking of Trump reminds me, Trump went and visited the Temple of Heaven in China. So now China's Temple of Heaven has become something for Xi Jinping, for the party, to show off. It's not a place to go quiet your mind and reflect on your mistakes anymore. It's become, look how beautifully we've restored this. Look how magnificent and gilded it is, put on display to dazzle you, to open your eyes. and then he goes and brings Trump there for a photo op. What good is going to come out of that? I think when it all plays out, you're going to see more of this. The dam collapse in Guangxi, the tornadoes, all these various disasters, they're only going to get worse. That's what I think. If a society loses integrity for good, officials only protect their own positions, they stop caring about heaven, earth, or ordinary people.
Ordinary people come last.
Ordinary people's lives always come last, and that's how a natural disaster becomes a man-made one. That's it for today. Thanks so much to you both, and thanks for watching. See you next time.